Hello everyone, welcome to Slumber Stories. The Colosseum stands in moonlit silence under a crescent moon. Empty cobblestone streets leading to its ancient arches, shadows pooling in the arena's depths, a single figure in dark clothing walking toward the structure, mist rising from the stones, stars visible through broken sections of the upper levels, atmosphere of sacred solitude and ancient watching. Close view of massive megalithic foundation stones fitted together with impossible precision, no gaps between blocks despite their irregular polygonal shapes, a geologist's hand holding a measuring tool against the seamless joint, tool marks visible on stone surfaces that don't match Roman chisels, layers of different stone types visible in the cross-section, lamplight revealing the mystery of ancient engineering. Two scholars in a dimly lit archive after hours, surrounded by ancient texts and modern archaeological reports, one pointing to photographs of anomalous structures while the other looks concerned, restricted access documents visible on the table, maps of underground Rome spread between them, expressions of troubled revelation, atmosphere of forbidden knowledge being shared in whispers. Deep underground chamber beneath the Roman Forum, stone ceiling supported by pillars using construction techniques unknown to Roman engineering, excavation equipment stopped mid-work and abandoned, official barriers blocking further access, mysterious darkness extending into unexplored passages, geological survey equipment showing readings that contradict the historical timeline, dust motes floating in flashlight beams, a massive stone block weighing dozens of tons positioned with millimeter precision in an ancient foundation, modern crane in the background appearing inadequate for the task, stonemason examining the perfect cut surfaces with wonder and confusion, no visible mortar between joints, the stone appearing to have been placed by capabilities beyond contemporary understanding, ancient engineering, defying modern explanation. Aerial view of Rome sleeping at night. City lights glowing above, while transparent layers reveal the underground network of chambers and ancient foundations beneath. The seven hills rising in darkness, moonlight casting long shadows. The contrast between the visible modern city and the hidden ancient structures below. Secrets buried under empire and time, the weight of forgotten civilizations pressing up from below. Cross-section view of Rome's layers, like an onion being peeled, showing medieval buildings on top, Roman structures in the middle layer, and massive ancient megalithic foundations at the deepest level, each layer becoming more sophisticated as it goes deeper, the oldest stones glowing with mysterious luminescence, geological strata clearly marked, the paradox of technology regressing through time made visible. Close detailed view of polygonal masonry on the Capitoline Hill foundation. Massive 30-ton irregular stones fitted together like a three-dimensional puzzle with no gaps or mortar. Each stone uniquely shaped yet perfectly interlocking. A modern archaeologist with measuring tools kneeling in amazement beside the precision joints. Lamplight revealing the impossible accuracy, ancient geometric knowledge made manifest in stone. Underground tunnel carved through bedrock beneath the Roman Forum. Smooth, polished walls showing no chisel marks. Mysterious passages leading into darkness with no logical purpose in the city layout above. An explorer's flashlight illuminating the inexplicable construction. The rock face almost glass-like in its finish. Methods of creation remaining unknown. Atmosphere of ancient enigma and forbidden discovery. Ancient Roman engineer in traditional toga, standing before massive foundation stones with scrolls and architectural plans, looking confused and troubled. The foundation blocks clearly predating his own era, his tools and documents inadequate to explain what he's inherited. The Temple of Jupiter rising above on stones, no Roman claim to have laid. The expression of discovering rather than building, inheriting rather than creating. Modern geologist examining a foundation stone, with scientific equipment showing anomalous dating results. Weathering patterns on the stone, indicating millennia more exposure than historically possible. Technical instruments displaying readings that contradict the timeline. Clipboard with data marked uncertain provenance. The uncomfortable position of evidence versus accepted history. Scientific truth conflicting with official narrative. Deep beneath, tourist-filled streets, layers of construction visible in archaeological cross-section, modern infrastructure above. Renaissance renovation in the middle, medieval construction below that, Roman temples lower still, and at the very bottom, massive ancient foundations that predate all known history. Truth waiting in darkness. Stones remembering their builders while history has forgotten. The old builders' work supporting empires that claimed it as their own. The mythological scene of Romulus and Remus being nursed by a she-wolf beneath the Palatine Hill, but in the background, Massive, ancient, megalithic foundations are visible, predating the legendary founding. The contrast between the mythological narrative in the foreground and the unexplained ancient structures looming behind. 753 BCE, marked in decorative script, the foundation story, obscuring older truths. The historian Livy, in his study, surrounded by fragmentary scrolls and incomplete texts, looking troubled as he writes his history 7 centuries after the events. Candlelight, illuminating ancient contradictory sources, maps showing gaps in the timeline, expressions of uncertainty and doubt, the challenge of reconstructing truth from legend and oral tradition, scholarly frustration with missing pieces, depiction of the legendary giants and cyclopes building massive cyclopean walls in ancient Italy, enormous stone blocks being moved by mysterious builders of immense stature, Roman observers in the foreground looking small and awed before the ancient constructions, the Pelasgians as shadowy pre-Indo-European figures whose faces remain unclear, the atmosphere of mythological memory, preserving actual historical events. The Tyrrhenians as mysterious ancient builders, shown as ghostly translucent figures working with advanced stone-cutting techniques, their features indistinct and deliberately obscured, modern Romans standing in confusion before their works. The sense of something earlier than Etruscans, knowledge that came from elsewhere or from such deep antiquity that origins are forgotten, the vagueness of historical record made visual. The Temple of Vesta in Rome, with Roman priests in ceremonial robes standing before its ancient foundation, expressions of reverence mixed with confusion, the foundation stones clearly using techniques foreign to Roman practice, sacred flames burning, while the priests admit no one remembers who built it. Inscriptions reading, "Beyond memory" in Latin script, the acceptance of mystery in the most sacred space. Split scene showing on one side the clean mythological narrative taught to Roman children Romulus, tracing the city boundaries, and on the other side, the uncomfortable reality of massive pre-existing ruins and foundations that Romans built upon, the contrast between official story and physical evidence, ancient stones supporting Roman temples that claimed them as their own, empire built on inheritance claimed as creation. Interior view of the Pantheon dome with the oculus at center, a beam of light tracing across ancient walls, showing the perfect circular opening, the massive unreinforced concrete dome spanning impossibly wide, a tiny human figure standing below, emphasizing the scale, the geometry of a perfect sphere fitting exactly within the interior space, an atmosphere of impossible achievement that modern engineering cannot surpass. Cross-section diagram of the Pantheon's dome showing varying concrete composition, heavy travertine aggregates at the base, gradually transitioning to light volcanic pumice at the crown, color-coded layers revealing sophisticated understanding of load distribution, modern engineers with equipment looking perplexed at the advanced material science, formulas and calculations floating in the margins that wouldn't be formalized until the Renaissance. Close view of Roman concrete from the Pantheon under magnification, showing crystalline structures forming and self-healing as it interacts with rainwater. Comparison beside modern concrete cracking and degrading, the ancient material growing stronger with age, while contemporary equivalents deteriorate. Volcanic ash from Naples visible in the composition, the mystery of a formula that surpasses modern understanding. The Pantheon's portico, with massive Corinthian columns that don't quite fit, subtle misalignment in proportions visible. Archaeologists measuring and noting the columns came from an earlier building, the styling not perfectly matching the dome behind. Evidence of recycled monumental stonework from unknown previous structures, the uncomfortable truth of incorporated ancient elements. Emperor Hadrian, in imperial regalia standing before the Pantheon, claiming to have restored it, but behind him ghostly transparent layers, showing multiple earlier construction phases, foundations revealing centuries of building before his era, the question of whether he truly built or merely renovated something far older. The ambiguity between creator and inheritor, legacy knowledge applied without full understanding. The Pantheon's oculus remaining geometrically perfect after 2 millennia, rain falling through the opening onto the marble floor, where ancient drainage systems still function flawlessly, the structure surviving earthquakes that destroyed other buildings, modern concrete structures in the background showing degradation after mere decades, the contrast between Roman construction that strengthens with time and contemporary buildings that crumble, someone knowing how to build for eternity. Cutaway technical view of a Roman aqueduct spanning 57 miles across varied terrain, showing the impossibly precise gradient of 1 foot per mile, Mathematical calculations floating in decorative margins, showing 0.02% decline. Water flowing perfectly through the channel without erosion or stagnation. Mountains and valleys crossed with engineering precision that modern surveyors respect. The mystery of maintaining such accuracy across distance. The Aqua Appia construction in 312 BCE, Roman engineers working with fully formed knowledge showing no trial and error. The aqueduct appearing complete and sophisticated from its first implementation. A light switch being illuminated symbolically in the corner. No evidence of earlier crude attempts. The sudden appearance of advanced hydraulic engineering, as if the knowledge already existed. Atmosphere of inherited rather than invented capability. Close detailed view of Roman surveying instruments. The chorobates and dioptra, sophisticated leveling tools with sights, water levels, and graduated scales. An engineer using them to measure elevation changes over miles of terrain. The precision instruments appearing without developmental predecessors. Mystery of their conception and invention. Technical knowledge manifesting fully formed in the archaeological record. Archaeological excavation revealing ancient aqueduct foundations with massive polygonal masonry blocks beneath Roman construction. Pre-Roman stonework showing water management systems that predate the empire by centuries. Archaeologists looking troubled at the layering. Older and more sophisticated channels beneath what Romans claim to have built. Evidence of incorporation rather than innovation. Etruscan tunnel networks in northern Italy, cut through solid rock with precision, sophisticated hydraulic systems for draining marshes and supplying cities. Pre-Roman engineering equal to or exceeding later Roman works. The tunnels demonstrating advanced hydrology centuries before Rome's rise. Etruscan engineers shown as ghostly figures whose knowledge Rome inherited and claimed. Water flowing through ancient channels today, still following gradients calculated 2 millennia ago. The eternal truth of water obeying physics and revealing engineering quality. Modern Rome's water supply, still using ancient Roman aqueducts. The persistence of perfect engineering through time. Water as the ultimate judge of construction knowledge, proving someone understood hydraulics at a profound level, whether Roman or earlier. Massive 50-ton foundation stone being positioned with millimeter precision by mysterious ancient builders. Modern crane in the background appearing inadequate for the task. The stone fitting perfectly into its predetermined space, without mortar. No gaps visible between blocks, rulers, and measuring tools showing impossible accuracy. The weight of empires built above pressing down. Atmosphere of engineering capability beyond Roman documentation. Close view of the Servian wall's polygonal masonry from the 6th century BCE. Irregular three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle stones, each uniquely shaped and custom-fitted, a blade being tested between joints showing no gap exists. Shepherds and early Roman farmers in the background, appearing incongruous with the sophisticated construction before them. The technique appearing fully formed, with no developmental precursors, lost knowledge made visible in stone. Archaeological examination of Capitoline Hill foundation stones, showing surfaces impossibly flat and parallel. Edges aligned with extraordinary precision, weight distribution calculated optimally, but Roman engineering manuals lying open nearby showing no documentation of these techniques. The records conspicuously silent. Scholars looking perplexed at the gap between physical evidence and written history. Split comparison showing verified Roman stonework, with characteristic iron chisel marks on one side, and mysterious megalithic foundation blocks on the other side, with surfaces too smooth and cuts too precise for iron implements. Magnified views of tool signatures that don't match known Roman tools. The evidence of different technology or techniques that left no recognizable trace. Mystery of unidentifiable craftsmanship. Global map showing identical polygonal masonry techniques across separated continents. Rome's foundations, Baalbek's 800-ton stones in Lebanon, Sacsayhuaman's precise walls in Peru. Egyptian temple foundations all using the same impossible precision, despite ocean distances and no known contact. The theory of a sophisticated lost stoneworking civilization spanning the ancient world, parallel mysteries, suggesting common origin. Silent megalithic foundation stones beneath a Roman temple, bearing weight through millennia, fitted with precision that shouldn't exist. Pelasgian and Etruscan ghostly figures fading into the background, as Roman builders in the foreground claim the work as ancestral construction. Empire incorporating and claiming what earlier mysterious peoples created. Stones remembering their true shapers, while history forgets. The question of who really built the foundations visible in the perfect joints. Scene showing Etruscan masters teaching young Romans in an elaborate underground chamber. sophisticated engineering diagrams and architectural plans spread before them, the Etruscans appearing wise and advanced, while Romans take notes reverently. The question, where did the Etruscans learn it? Inscribed in decorative script above, atmosphere of knowledge being passed from teacher to student, but the source of that knowledge remaining mysterious. Underground city of Orvieto carved from solid tufa rock. Multiple levels descending into earth connected by precision-cut passages and stairs. Ventilation shafts still functioning after millennia. Chambers showing sophisticated surveying and planning. Bronze Age engineers working with tools that seem inadequate for such precision. The mystery of how such complexity was achieved. Smooth rock walls glowing in torchlight. The Vi Cave, massive road cuttings, carved 60 feet deep through solid bedrock. Smooth vertical walls, towering on both sides. Mysterious passages following specific patterns beyond simple transportation needs. Etruscan figures small at the bottom, emphasizing the enormous scale. The question of why such tremendous labor was invested, visible in the impossible depth and precision of the cuts through stone. Etruscan tomb interior, elaborately decorated with still visible frescoes, after 2,500 years, furnished like homes for eternity. Precise stone cutting and careful load distribution, keeping the structure sound. Painted walls showing scenes of life and death. Geometric knowledge embedded in the architecture. Comparison showing Roman tombs in the background, appearing cruder, the sophistication of preservation and construction techniques. Cross-section view of the Cuniculi tunnel systems extending for miles through solid rock, maintaining precise gradients for water flow. Understanding of hydrology and geology demonstrated in the design. The tunnels appearing suddenly in archaeological record, already sophisticated with no developmental phase. Etruscan engineers either possessing remarkable quick learning or inheriting knowledge from mysterious predecessors, shown as ghostly figures in the background. Etruscan religious text fragment showing references to ancient gods and old builders. Partially deciphered non-Indo-European script that doesn't fit any known language family. Scholarly confusion about linguistic isolation. Images of earlier construction phases beneath Etruscan sites, suggesting they built upon ruins they found. The question of who taught the Etruscans, leading back through layers of time to forgotten predecessors. Atmosphere of knowledge inherited through unknown chains of transmission. Ancient Greek historian Dionysius of Halicarnassus, in the 1st century BCE, writing with troubled expression. Massive Cyclopean wall, visible through a window behind him, with stones so large that not even a yoke of oxen could move the smallest. Oxen team, shown in scale comparison, emphasizing impossible size. The historian struggling to explain structures built by people whose identity had faded to legend. Scrolls marked Pelasgians scattered around him. Cyclopean walls throughout Mediterranean landscape, showing massive irregular stones, fitted with polygonal masonry precision. The walls labelled with erased and fading names. Pelasgians, Ratians, Cycles, Ligers, names disappearing into mist, while their stonework remains solid and enduring. Comparison showing primitive label versus sophisticated engineering reality. The contradiction between dismissive categorization and actual achievement visible in the construction quality. Ratian metalworkers in Alpine mountain pass with sophisticated fortifications adapted to high-altitude terrain. Partially deciphered inscriptions in unknown script carved into stone. Advanced metalworking and Alpine engineering visible. Then the scene fading and being absorbed into Roman territory. Their language dying, culture disappearing, reduced to footnote reading, local pre-Roman construction with no elaboration. The process of erasure made visual. Greek colonists arriving in Sicily finding impressive sisal stonework, their expressions showing puzzlement and reluctant admiration. Greeks who normally claimed superiority, admitting these barbarians, possessed knowledge beyond expectation. The cognitive dissonance between assumed primitive status and actual sophisticated construction. Sisal builders, shown as accomplished engineers rather than the primitive peoples, history dismissed them as Ligurian megalithic structures in northwestern Italy, dolmens and stone circles, suggesting astronomical observation and monumental construction capability, evidence of organized societies with long-term planning, but modern textbooks showing them reduced to geographical footnote. The contrast between archaeological evidence of sophistication and historical marginalization, cultures written out of consciousness despite physical proof of their achievements. Cross-section of layers showing forgotten people's stonework at the deepest level, supporting Roman temples above, medieval churches in the middle, modern cities on top, The names of the original builders erased, but their foundations still bearing all the weight. Silent testimony to civilization's textbooks ignore. The question, how much human history has been deliberately forgotten? Inscribed in fading script, stones remembering what history erased. Split timeline showing normal technology development on one side, with pottery progressing from crude to refined over generations, versus orphan knowledge on the other side, showing advanced bronze working, appearing suddenly fully formed in 1000 BCE Italy, with no developmental stages. Modern metallurgist examining ancient bronze with perfect alloy ratios showing shock and confusion. The impossibility of mastery without trial and error made visual. Etruscan arch perfectly formed and structurally sound, predating Roman power by centuries. Roman architects centuries later, claiming the arch as their innovation, the knowledge existing complete with no explanation of origins. The ghostly hands of unknown inventors fading into the past while Romans take credit in the foreground. The mystery of where the Etruscans learned the technique inscribed in question marks. Opus reticulatum stone-facing technique, showing small square stones placed diagonally in perfect diamond pattern from its first 2nd century BCE appearance. No early crude attempts visible, then the same technique gradually disappearing from later Roman construction. The cycle of knowledge arriving perfect, being used, then forgotten as if borrowed rather than developed. Temporal arc showing unexplained mastery. Display of orphan knowledge across history. Damascus, steel sword, with properties modern science cannot replicate. Greek fire, burning on water impossibly. Roman concrete, self-healing through millennia, each showing sophisticated achievement that appeared, flourished, and vanished with formulas lost. The pattern of knowledge without lineage repeated across cultures and centuries. Mystery of origins inscribed in ancient scripts. Circular diagram showing technology cycling, rather than progressing linearly. Knowledge gained, lost in catastrophe. Rediscovered, attributed to new discoverers, lost again. The cycle repeating through time. Civilizations at different points on the wheel, claiming innovation for what they've actually rediscovered. The linear progress model being replaced by cyclical understanding. Fragments of older knowledge surviving imperfectly. Shadowy, unknown ancient civilization in deep past. First developing advanced metallurgy, sophisticated surveying, precise stonework, and durable concrete. Their knowledge fragmenting and surviving in ruins, and techniques passed down, later civilizations Etruscans, Romans, others rediscovering and claiming these innovations, the true inventors, nameless and forgotten, while credit goes to those who remembered. Layers of time obscuring original sources of orphan knowledge. Comparison of two maps side by side. A detailed 1700s atlas showing Tartaria clearly marked across northern Asia, with borders, cities, and political divisions in elaborate cartographic detail, versus a modern map of the same geographic space, where Tartaria has vanished completely and been replaced with emptiness or vague tribal designations. The mystery of a civilization erased from cartography, question marks floating where the name once appeared. 1800s photograph of American frontier city, supposedly being newly built, but showing ornate classical architecture with massive stone buildings. Advanced urban planning, weathered appearance, suggesting structures far older than the official timeline allows. Pioneers and settlers appearing small against established infrastructure. The uncomfortable question of occupation versus construction. Buildings that don't look newly made but inherited. World's Fair Exposition building, officially described as temporary structure, made of plaster and fibre, but photographs showing permanent-looking classical columns, elaborate facades, sophisticated engineering that seems excessive for brief exhibition. Comparison between official explanation of staff construction versus appearance of solid permanent architecture. The scale and sophistication, questioning the temporary narrative. Structures awaiting demolition, not because temporary, but to erase evidence. Dark Age scene showing the fall of sophisticated civilization. Advanced buildings and infrastructure standing abandoned while knowledge fades. Monasteries preserving fragments. Then centuries later, Renaissance scholars not just reading texts, but relearning how to use structures that still stood. The recovery being about rediscovering existing infrastructure rather than inventing a new. Pattern of knowledge lost and reclaimed. Scholarly debate visualization with mainstream historian. On one side, presenting valid criticisms. Tartary as general term. Photographic misinterpretation. Documented World's Fair construction. Lack of archaeological evidence. While alternative researcher on other side, pointing to consistency of maps, sophistication of structures, gaps in historical records, both sides examining same evidence, reaching different conclusions, the discomfort the questions create in academic circles. Cyclical civilization diagram, showing sophisticated building culture rising across Europe and Asia, creating impressive structures and advanced urban planning, then falling and being forgotten, later peoples rediscovering and claiming credit, the cycle repeating through time with Rome's mysterious foundations as one piece of larger puzzle, the name Tartaria, potentially wrong, but the concept of forgotten, sophisticated, pre-modern civilization remaining valid, layers of rise and fall, obscuring truth. Cross-section of Rome's Palatine Hill, showing Roman-era buildings on top, with foundations descending 30 to 40 feet into bedrock, far deeper than necessary, massive, precisely cut stones at the deepest levels, suggesting builders anticipated catastrophic subsidence, or built atop something much older. Layers of construction visible with the oldest being most sophisticated, the symbolic heart of Roman identity hiding mysterious depths below. Bologna's underground city with sophisticated canal systems and precise stonework, supposedly medieval, but appearing far older. Water flowing through advanced hydraulic networks, medieval builders shown small against massive underground passages they supposedly constructed, local legends written in fading script claiming these spaces were discovered rather than built, infrastructure adapted and repurposed from unknown previous inhabitants. Venice's foundation showing millions of wooden pilings driven into lagoon floor in precise intervals and optimal depths. 5th century refugees with limited tools contrasted against the sophisticated engineering required. Modern engineers examining the foundations with expressions of awe, the impossibility of desperate refugees achieving such advanced understanding of soil mechanics and structural engineering during Europe's dark ages, unless adapting existing infrastructure. European landscape showing orphan architecture, massive fortifications using megalithic techniques, underground tunnel networks demonstrating impossible sophistication, cities built on multiple underground levels, all lacking clear builders in historical records. The fundamental problem of dating stone structures visible with question marks over carbon dating limitations, speculation dressed as science, structures existing without explanation, medieval Europeans living within massive infrastructure they couldn't have built, giants depicted in their legends working stone, ancient builders, and those who came before, shown as ghostly figures embedded in folk memory, the knowledge that they inhabited but did not create their surroundings, local myths preserving truth that official history denies, the question of who built it, floating unanswered above structures too sophisticated for medieval technology. Renaissance scholars, not reading ancient texts in libraries, but examining actual standing structures, touching stones and infrastructure that still functioned, reconnecting with knowledge preserved in physical buildings rather than books. The rebirth, being literal relearning from existing engineering. Medieval engineers slowly understanding how to maintain what they'd inherited, knowledge encoded in architecture itself, waiting for minds wise enough to read it. Stones as the true teachers of lost wisdom. Split comparison showing Sacsayhuaman's polygonal masonry in Peru on one side and Rome's oldest walls on the other. The stonework, identical, not similar, irregular, uniquely shaped stones, fitted with millimeter precision, no blade fitting between joints, oceans separating the sites yet techniques perfectly matching. The impossibility of coincidence made visual. Inca claiming they found these foundations built by people before memory. The Trilithon of Baalbek showing 3 massive 800-ton foundation stones at the Temple of Jupiter. Modern crane, rated for 1,000 tons, shown in scale comparison. Appearing barely adequate, the blocks quarried uphill and positioned with millimeter precision. Roman period builders supposedly achieving this without steel or hydraulics. The rational explanation failing before impossible evidence. Mystery of movement and placement defying modern capability. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to 9,600 BCE, showing massive carved stone pillars with sophisticated artwork arranged in complex geometric patterns. Hunter-gatherers who supposedly built it, shown small and primitive-looking against the advanced engineering. The troubling contradiction between attributed builders and actual achievement. Civilization existing 6,000 years before civilization should exist according to conventional chronology. The timeline breaking. World map showing identical megalithic techniques appearing across separated continents, polygonal masonry in Italy, Peru, Egypt, Japan, astronomical alignments from Stonehenge to pyramids to Angkor Wat to Mayan temples. Massive precision stonework on every continent except Antarctica. Lines connecting similar techniques across oceans with no known contact. The pattern of shared knowledge versus impossible coincidence of independent invention. Pre-Younger Dryas world 12,000 years ago, showing sophisticated global civilization with lower sea levels, exposing vast coastal areas. Then catastrophic climate change striking, ice cores showing rapid temperature fluctuations, mass extinctions and environmental disruption. Survivors scattered, preserving fragments of knowledge. The theory of shared source, before cataclysm, made visual. Origins forgotten as each culture claimed techniques as their own innovation. Collage of flood legends from multiple cultures. Sumerian, Biblical, Greek, Hindu, Native American, Polynesian, all describing similar great catastrophe, destroying advanced earlier civilization. Cultural memories, inscribed in various ancient scripts, surrounding a globe showing flooded coastal regions. The myths potentially being actual memories of global cataclysm. Ancient builders across continents, not myth but memory of real pre-flood civilization. Rome's foundations as one piece of worldwide puzzle. Visual contrast between linear progress narrative on one side, showing steady upward arrow from caves to cities, versus cyclical reality on other side, showing spiral pattern of civilization rising and catastrophically falling repeatedly through time. Geological layers and ice cores preserving the cycles. The comforting myth of forward progress versus the harsh truth of repeating patterns, humanity forgetting and relearning across millennia. Younger Dryas impact scene, showing fragmented comet striking Earth. 12,800 years ago. Global temperatures plummeting rapidly, megafauna going extinct, ice sheets advancing then retreating, platinum layer visible in geological strata, nanodiamonds formed under extreme pressure, catastrophic climate change occurring within decades not millennia, the event that reset civilization preserved in Earth's geological record, devastation on unimaginable scale. Advanced pre-Younger Dryas coastal city being drowned by rising seas, agricultural centers failing, trade networks collapsing, educated specialists concentrated in cities dying as infrastructure crumbles, knowledge residing in scholars' minds being lost forever, libraries flooding, the cascade of civilization collapse, survivors scattered and regressed, everything sophisticated erased within a generation. The fragility of specialized knowledge made devastatingly visible. Post-Roman Europe showing technological regression. Recipe for concrete lost and forgotten. Advanced engineering techniques vanished. Literacy plummeting. Medieval Europeans unable to replicate achievements that were commonplace during empire. Ancient Roman structures standing as mysterious monuments the descendants can no longer build. The loss happening despite written records and gradual rather than catastrophic decline. Proof that civilization can forget, even with advantages. Survivor civilization, living among ruins of their own destroyed world. Refugees attempting to understand structures their ancestors built with techniques now lost, becoming archaeologists of their own civilization. Reverse engineering ancient technology, preserving fragments through oral tradition. Advanced civilization, fading from history to legend, to myth to forgotten, except for stones that refuse to erode. Generations watching knowledge slip away. Rome's foundations revealed as pre-Younger Dryas ruins, with Etruscans and Pelasgians shown as survivor descendants settling among ancient megalithic structures, slowly recovering fragments of lost knowledge over millennia. Romans building atop this twice-removed legacy, genuinely not knowing full truth themselves. The pattern of forgetting made visible through layers. Catastrophe survivors, their descendants, then Romans, each generation further from original builders, civilization resetting and climbing back through ruins. Transformation sequence showing technical manual becoming teaching story, historical account becoming legend, scientific observation becoming myth, the knowledge not vanishing but encoding itself in narrative form, written scrolls burning and decaying on one side, while oral traditions and stories persist, glowing on the other. Memory as the vessel that carries truth through darkness between civilizations, the metamorphosis of fact into mythology for survival. World map with flood legends from every culture. Sumerian, Biblical, Greek, Hindu, Chinese, Native American, Polynesian, all describing Great Deluge, destroying advanced civilization, the stories sharing specific details and numbers as if preserving actual information in memorable narrative form. Not independent myths, but unified cultural memory of real catastrophic events. Survivors encoding truth in story, because story survives when documentation fails. Great Pyramid of Giza, with mathematical constants, visible pi encoded in perimeter to height ratio, speed of light in latitude coordinates, geometric relationships floating as luminous calculations around the structure. Similar mathematical encoding shown in Stonehenge, Angkor Wat, and Mayan temples across the image. Ancient structures functioning as knowledge repositories with information preserved in proportions and alignments, coincidence becoming impossibility. Visualization of precession, of the equinoxes, showing Earth's axis, slowly rotating over 26,000-year cycle, stars shifting position across millennia, multiple generations of astronomers, observing and recording across centuries, the sophisticated knowledge encoded in ancient structures. Question of why primitive cultures invested such effort unless inheriting knowledge from advanced predecessors who needed it for lost purposes. Gothic cathedral rising in 12th century Europe, with medieval builders examining ancient Roman structures and decoding knowledge preserved in stone itself, mathematical relationships and engineering techniques flowing from old ruins to new construction, craft guilds passing down fragments, the sudden flourishing of sophisticated architecture, not from reading texts but from reading buildings, structures themselves as the preserved manuals of lost civilization. Survivors after civilization collapse carving knowledge in enduring stone, weaving understanding into memorable stories, hiding technical information in sacred ritual, the three forms of preservation: carved monuments, oral narratives, ceremonial practices, all protecting fragments of advanced knowledge through dark ages, myths as history, temple proportions as mathematics, rituals as encoded science, ancients not primitive, but desperate to preserve what their ancestors knew, wisdom waiting for wise enough descendants to decode. Egyptian priest in ancient temple, initiating a student into sacred mysteries, mathematical and astronomical knowledge, written in hieroglyphs glowing on walls, Pythagorean scholars in robes treating geometry as religious secret, Druidic elders passing oral traditions without writing, the pattern of knowledge, guardianship across cultures, initiation rituals preserving information through dark ages, repositories intentionally structured to survive civilizational collapse. Medieval stonemason guild ceremony, with elaborate initiation, ritual appearing excessive for simple craft, journeymen swearing solemn oaths before receiving ancient wisdom from masters, geometric and engineering knowledge presented as sacred inheritance, passed through generations, the protection of something more valuable than mundane techniques, fragments of advanced pre-catastrophe science guarded through ceremonial tradition. Knights Templar excavating beneath Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, discovering ancient texts and artifacts in hidden chambers. Warrior monks transformed by forbidden knowledge, then returning to Europe and directing Gothic cathedral construction with architectural sophistication that medieval period shouldn't possess. The sudden flourishing of advanced engineering explained by rediscovered pre-Christian wisdom, knowledge from civilizations older than Solomon. Gothic cathedral rising across 12th century Europe, with soaring vaulted ceilings and precise stone cutting, demonstrating impossible mathematical sophistication. Templar knights consulting with master masons, geometric relationships and structural calculations, floating as luminous diagrams, the mystery of where this knowledge originated, conventional explanation of monastic texts versus alternative theory of ancient rediscovered wisdom, incorporated into European architecture. Vatican's secret archives, with endless rows of ancient texts and sealed documents stretching into darkness, restricted sections marked with crossed keys, artifacts from excavations beneath the Vatican locked away, church officials examining discoveries about Rome's pre-Christian origins, then deliberately concealing them. Motive: to suppress evidence that would challenge biblical chronology and undermine narrative of Rome as Christianity's destined seat. Truth, buried in classified archives. Secret society, meeting in shadowed chamber, with members possessing forbidden knowledge that civilization isn't the first. Ancient texts and artifacts proving advanced pre-cataclysm cultures. Templar descendants and other keepers guarding truth across centuries. Information controlled and selectively revealed to maintain power through knowledge monopoly. Rome's mysterious foundations as evidence they've worked to obscure. The question of who still guards ancient secrets, and why, inscribed in cryptic symbols. The historian Livy, writing in 27 BCE, attempting to document events from 753 BCE, 700 years of temporal distance, visualized as vast gap between him and the events. fragmentary scrolls and contradictory oral traditions scattered around him, mythological elements bleeding into historical fact on the parchment, his honest admission of uncertainty contrasted with his work becoming unquestioned canon for future civilizations, the invention of ancient Rome through retrospective narrative. Roman historians Tacitus and Plutarch, writing in imperial court with political pressures visible, patrons watching from shadows, the need to serve empire's narrative versus truth, foundation myth of Romulus and Remus serving divine legitimacy and imperial justification rather than historical accuracy, writers choosing stories that secure patronage and avoid exile or execution, history as political tool rather than objective record, Rome conquering Italian peoples, Etruscans, Samnites, Sabines, their libraries burning, languages dying, histories being erased and replaced with Roman versions, conquered people's achievements minimized, while Roman ingenuity maximized. The pattern of victors' history made visible through flames consuming records and Roman scribes rewriting what survived, cultural genocide through historical revisionism, split comparison showing pre-Roman Etruscan aqueducts and arches on one side, then Roman historians on other side claiming these as Roman inventions, archaeological evidence of sophisticated water systems throughout pre-Roman Italy ignored, credit stolen and reassigned, innovations from conquered territories becoming Roman achievements, Greek knowledge becoming Roman philosophy, Egyptian astronomy becoming Roman calendar, the systematic theft of legacy, Roman soldiers destroying library and temple of conquered people, scrolls burning, historical records deliberately obliterated, ensuring only Roman versions would survive, the systematic destruction not accidental but intentional erasure, future generations left with only victor's narrative, conquered civilizations' voices silenced forever, the darkest method of controlling history, through elimination of alternatives, ancient megalithic foundations beneath Rome, with stones that remember their true builders, contrasted with Roman historians above writing false attributions, the physical evidence of pre-Roman construction being deliberately ignored or vaguely attributed to ancient builders, stones as silent witnesses to truth, while official history erases and forgets, the permanent testimony of stone versus the malleable lies of historical narrative, what endures versus what historians chose to record, archaeological anomalies being filed away and forgotten, megalithic foundations labelled Roman construction, exact methods uncertain, despite using techniques unknown to Romans, discoveries initially announced, then quietly withdrawn, folders marked contamination and measurement error, piling up while the actual evidence contradicts official timeline, institutional mechanism of dismissal, protecting paradigm over truth, the marginalization of inconvenient findings made visible, academic researcher proposing controversial theory, facing institutional pressure, difficulty getting published, funding applications rejected, skeptical peers in shadows threatening career, the subtle but powerful forces shaping conservative interpretation, institutional momentum visualized as massive weight pressing down on brave researcher, safety of conformity versus danger of challenging consensus, not conspiracy, but systemic resistance to paradigm shift. Thomas Kuhn's paradigm shift theory visualized with anomalies piling up around established framework like cracks forming, evidence dismissed as outliers, accumulating until structure suddenly collapses, a new paradigm emerges, the weight of ignored evidence finally becoming too great. Scientific revolution requiring brave researchers willing to risk everything to challenge accepted model. The moment before paradigm collapse. Out of place. Artifacts displayed impossibly metallic objects in ancient coal seams. Precisely manufactured items in geological strata, predating technology. Mainstream archaeologists reflexively dismissing as hoax without investigation versus alternative researchers examining seriously carbon dating equipment showing limitations and assumptions about atmospheric consistency, cosmic ray flux variations affecting results, dates contradicting timeline being rejected rather than questioning the timeline itself, ground-penetrating radar showing large chambers and anomalous structures detected beneath Rome at extreme depths, seismic imaging revealing construction patterns not matching Roman techniques, excavation equipment ready, but official barriers and denied permits blocking access, preservation explanation, written in bureaucratic documents, while the real reluctance to discover paradigm-threatening evidence remains unspoken, restricted areas hiding uncomfortable truths, accumulating anomalies beneath Rome creating pattern that threatens entire edifice of established understanding textbooks, museum exhibitions, tourism narratives, cultural identity, all built on comfortable timeline. The stakes making objectivity impossible, evidence existing in restricted excavation sites, waiting for honest confrontation, the weight of what maintaining the narrative protects versus what truth might reveal, archaeology trapped between paradigm and reality. The Pope in Vatican regalia, sitting on throne above symbolic foundation, showing Rome's layers, the narrative of pagan empire, transitioning to Christian dominion, visualized as elegant succession, street. Peter's Basilica, rising majestically, but foundations beneath, revealing much older pre-Christian structures, divine plan narrative complicated by evidence of forgotten predecessors, the Church's claim to inherited Roman glory becoming less compelling if Rome itself inherited from someone else, symbolic authority threatened by deeper truth. European map showing nations connected by lines to Greco-Roman inheritance, Western philosophy from Greek thought, Western law from Roman jurisprudence, Western architecture following classical models, the clean lineage of cultural supremacy. But beneath this glowing web, showing earlier civilizations from which Greece and Rome actually inherited, the narrative of Western exceptionalism losing foundation, other cultures having equal claim to achievements attributed exclusively to classical world. Tourism seen at Roman monuments with millions of visitors, marketing materials proclaiming 2000-year-old Roman engineering marvels, revenue streams flowing into Italian economy, textbooks and museum exhibitions, all organized around established timeline. Then, alternative vision, showing same structures revealed as 10,000-year-old remnants from unknown builders. Entire narrative, requiring revision, economic discomfort of admitting uncertainty about heritage that generates substantial income. Multiple overlapping institutional systems, visualized as interconnected gears, academic institutions, religious organizations, national identities, tourism industries all reinforcing each other and creating momentum against change, not secret conspiracy but systemic alignment, each system having independent reasons to prefer status quo, the combined weight making challenging narrative feel like pushing against immovable institutional mass, resistance emerging from structural incentives rather than coordinated suppression. Historical sequence showing paradigm shifts that eventually succeeded despite institutional resistance, geocentric model falling to heliocentric, spontaneous generation abandoned, fixed species giving way to evolution, each showing initial fierce resistance, then eventual acceptance, the pattern suggesting truth emerging when evidence becomes overwhelming. Hope that Rome's true origins will similarly be revealed when researchers become brave enough to follow contradictory findings. Ancient stones beneath Rome, glowing with inherent truth about their true builders, contrasted with institutional consensus above, represented as official documents, museum plaques, textbooks all claiming conventional narrative, the stones indifferent to consensus, remembering who shaped them, regardless of what history claims, physical reality versus controlled narrative, ownership of the past, belonging to those who control storytelling, but ultimate truth, preserved in stone, waiting for honest examination. Ground-penetrating radar equipment, sending electromagnetic pulses through Earth beneath the Colosseum. Transparent visualization, showing large void spaces detected deeper than known chambers. Geometric regularity suggesting intentional construction, not natural caves. Layers of Roman building above, blocking physical access. The technology revealing what exists, but authorities denying permission to investigate. Eyes that see through stone meeting bureaucratic blindness. Seismic imaging map of tunnel networks beneath the Forum that don't match Roman infrastructure. Passages carved through bedrock, following wrong elevations and orientations. Connecting spaces serving no purpose in Roman city plan. Walls at impossible depths older than structures above. The underground labyrinth that makes no sense according to official chronology. Paths that shouldn't exist revealed by sound waves. Acoustic archaeology equipment detecting massive rectangular chamber deep beneath Palatine Hill. Sound waves mapping precise geometric dimensions and acoustic properties of enclosed designed space, the chamber too deep to be Roman and too perfectly shaped to be natural. Geometric ratios indicating sophisticated planning, but the space never physically accessed or officially excavated, despite clear evidence of existence, knowledge without investigation. Anomalous density readings throughout Rome's historic center, showing stone where there should be soil, voids where solid bedrock should exist, patterns suggesting organized construction at impossible depths, subsurface scans and measurements, revealing substantial buried structures, researchers with technology and data, but denied excavation permits, bureaucratic denial documents piling up while evidence of mysteries waits underground, frustrated archaeologists with ground-penetrating radar scans and seismic maps showing clear evidence of hidden chambers, facing bureaucratic officials blocking excavation permits, to official explanations about preservation and structural risk, contrasted with researchers' sense that authorities prefer not to discover anything complicating established timeline, the tension between technology revealing truth and institutions preventing its confirmation, modern capability meeting institutional resistance. Cross-section view beneath Rome showing layers of empire, republic, kingdom, and below those the oldest acknowledged foundations, then deeper still mysterious chambers and structures waiting in darkness, detected by technology but sealed by bureaucracy, sound waves and electromagnetic pulses, whispering, presence of secrets, stone and institutional barriers, both keeping truth hidden, the question of when someone will be brave enough to break through both obstacles glowing in the deepest darkness. The Colosseum's foundation in cross-section, showing lowest courses, using construction techniques different from upper structure, massive travertine blocks positioned with precision, exceeding typical Roman work, sophisticated load distribution, understanding visible in base versus the Roman construction above, the iconic monument potentially built on top of something already there, older foundations incorporated and claimed as Roman achievement, the symbol of Rome hiding pre-Roman origins. Circus Maximus excavation, revealing layers descending through Roman ruins into millennia older, sophisticated drainage and foundation work, engineering at deepest levels more advanced than early Romans should possess, water management and reinforced foundations, predating any Roman presence. The sacred site already established before Romans arrived. Occupation and renovation, claiming precedence over actual construction. Truth, buried in the lowest layers. St. Peter's Basilica in vertical cross-section showing Christian church above, pre-Christian necropolis middle layer, then deepest structures with stonework in unrecognized styles, blocks too precisely cut with techniques foreign to documented Roman construction, the lowest layers dismissed as foundation work of uncertain date, convenient categorization, avoiding uncomfortable questions about age and origin. Christian authority built literally on mysterious pre-Roman precision stonework. Roman Forum with visible temples and monuments clearly Roman on surface, but exposed foundations beneath showing megalithic construction. Large irregular stones fitted without mortar, using techniques absent from Roman engineering texts. Predating the Republic by centuries, the sophisticated technique dismissed as primitive, kingdom-era work despite matching advanced pre-Roman and worldwide megalithic methods. The political heart built on forgotten builders' foundations. Baths of Caracalla, showing elaborate Roman decoration and heating systems above, but foundations and underground chambers disproportionately massive and over-engineered for the visible structures. Engineers examining with confused expressions, noting the substructure seems designed for something heavier or different than what Romans built, evidence of reinforcing or building atop predecessor foundations, planned for other purposes, Roman extravagance covering older mystery. Rome's monuments as palimpsests, showing multiple construction phases layered, transparently different stone types, repairs using inferior technology to originals, overbuilt foundations supporting structures they weren't designed for, each generation adding and renovating until original builders forgotten, the most recent generation claiming total credit, Roman architecture as decorative facade, covering achievements predating Rome by millennia, genius not in building but in occupying and claiming, the facade hiding ancient truth. Aerial view of Rome's 7 hills showing sophisticated positioning beyond simple defensive advantage. Water drainage patterns optimized, sight lines between hills calculated for communication, sacred sites positioned according to astronomical and geometric principles, surveying lines and celestial alignments glowing over the landscape, the sophistication implying comprehensive planning before development began, understanding that predates 8th century BCE capabilities, planned perfection versus claimed organic growth. The Pomerium sacred boundary circuit, following astronomical patterns with solstice and equinox orientations, marked celestial mechanics knowledge encoded in the boundary that supposedly predates such understanding, mathematical angles and astronomical alignments visible as luminous geometric overlay on the ancient city limits. Surveying capabilities Romans shouldn't possess evident in the precise planning. The sacred boundary, revealing hidden astronomical knowledge. Cloaca Maxima sewer system in 6th century BCE, with comprehensive drainage network designed for large city, contrasted with small primitive mud brick settlement that supposedly existed at the time. The impossibility of planning sewers for a city that doesn't yet exist, made visual. Ancient engineers surveying entire area and calculating optimal paths for future expansion they couldn't predict, unless restoring or adapting system already there. Rome's temples positioned in geometric relationships following astronomical alignments. Temple of Vesta, marking precise solar events. Capitoline temples oriented to celestial occurrences. The pattern of deliberate placement versus random religious building scatter. Sacred sites that legends claim were already holy before Romans arrived. Long-term observation and sophisticated calculation required for such accuracy. The city as astronomical instrument. Street patterns in Rome's oldest districts imposing geometric order on terrain, where organic development would follow different, easier paths, streets cutting through areas against natural topography. Alignment suggesting adherence to pre-existing plan rather than natural development. Modern streets overlaid, showing ancient paths persisting through millennia because good urban design endures. Rome's layout potentially following forgotten predecessors' planning. Cross-section showing layers of cities beneath Rome, with each occupation layer influencing the next. Modern Roman streets on surface, Republican streets below, Kingdom period beneath that, then deepest layer, showing original sophisticated urban planning from forgotten civilization. Each plaza potentially concealing ancient temples. Every street corner hiding foundations from forgotten age. Entire city as monument to much older civilizations planning that Rome inherited and claimed. The palimpsest city, revealing its true ancient origins in the deepest layer. Hand touching ancient foundation stone that refuses to speak its builder's name. The surface impossibly flat with edges so true that paper cannot slip between joints. Ghost-like builders from forgotten civilization, working stone with precision. Modern stonemasons struggle to replicate. Calculations of loads and stresses floating as ethereal mathematics without computers. The stones whispering stories not written in textbooks. Knowledge embedded in physical form. Massive dozens of tons, stone block being moved and positioned with millimeter accuracy by mysterious ancient builders, using techniques unknown. No cranes or steel or diesel engines visible, the engineering appearing fully formed without trial and error. Evidence of people who had already mastered their craft before leaving any record. Foundations beneath Rome, demonstrating impossible sophistication. The work of complete mastery, not experimental learning. Ancient structure with mathematical relationships encoded in proportions. Astronomical alignments marked by celestial light. Engineering principles that shouldn't exist for millennia, made visible as glowing geometric overlays. Knowledge preserved in stone geometry and alignment, designed to outlast written records. Monuments as physical repositories of understanding. The builders embedding their science into eternal form. 3 theoretical profiles of the mysterious builders, shown as translucent overlapping figures, indigenous Bronze Age Italians, achieving unacknowledged sophistication, refugees from catastrophe elsewhere, carrying advanced knowledge from lost homeland, widespread pre-Indo-European peoples before later migrations. Their true identity uncertain but possibilities constrained by evidence. Question marks surrounding their origins, the builders who might have been. Building sites on elevated positions, with natural defences, near reliable water, geological and astronomical significance, marked by celestial alignments. Sophisticated construction without fortification walls suggesting peace or deterrent strength. Intentional placement versus random settlement. Landscape chosen with knowledge of climate and celestial importance. The builders selecting places with purpose, we can only guess. Sacred geography, recognized by forgotten eyes. Empty scene showing absence, no pottery with symbols, no metal tools with maker's marks, no burials revealing physical characteristics, organic materials decayed to nothing, later peoples scavenging and repurposing until nothing recognizable remains, sudden catastrophic disappearance leaving only stones, cities gone and records lost and names unknown, monuments surviving beneath Rome as silent, massive, inexplicable testimony, stone outlasting everything as builders intended, eternity achieved through their choice to build permanent, the haunting absence of everything except foundations, younger Dryas cataclysm striking Earth 12,000 years ago, extraterrestrial impacts visible in sky, massive ice sheets collapsing, and flooding coastal cities, agricultural lands failing as temperatures plunge, ecological devastation, shattering civilization in mere decades, ice core samples and geological records, preserving the apocalyptic evidence, seas rising hundreds of feet, drowning the builders' coastal centers, the force of catastrophe, transforming the planet and erasing advanced culture. Sequence showing collapse through generations, immediate catastrophe, leveling cities in minutes, then survivors realizing world has changed, crops failing, and animals dying, sophisticated infrastructure becoming useless as specialists die, engineers and architects vanishing without passing knowledge, survivors focused only on staying alive while abstract learning disappears, libraries becoming legend, then engineers becoming gods, then civilizations becoming myths, the progression from knowledge to forgetting. Post-Roman Europe showing regression, concrete formula lost for 1,000 years, advanced architecture forgotten, literacy declining dramatically, what took centuries to develop, vanishing in decades of chaos, the pattern of recorded history proving knowledge can be lost even with written records and neighboring civilizations. Comparison proving cataclysm would cause total loss if gradual decline causes such devastation, the theoretical made real through historical precedent. Multiple theories of the builder's fate, shown as overlapping transparent scenes. Indo-European waves conquering and absorbing. Military defeat, scattering populations through intermarriage. Seafaring builders voluntarily sailing away, leaving monuments behind. Pandemic disease crashing. Population below critical mass for complexity. Each scenario equally plausible. Question marks hovering over which explanation is true. Alternatives to natural catastrophe theory. Later peoples settling among superior ruins with expressions of inadequacy and resentment, systematically destroying evidence rather than acknowledge inferiority, concealing artifacts and rewriting history to claim impressive works as their own ancestors' achievements. Human psychology of pride, causing deliberate erasure across generations, each retelling adjusting story until original truth becomes unrecognizable. No conspiracy required, just repeated self-serving revision, the darkest possibility of intentional forgetting. Rome rising centuries later among silent ruins, finding massive foundations and mysterious techniques left by the builders, incorporating useful elements and claiming everything as Roman innovation. The builders' transition from history to legend to myth to nothing, made visual through fading figures, becoming ghosts, becoming nothing, their works enduring patient beneath empire's monuments, nameless, faceless, lost to time, but foundations remaining, waiting for eyes willing to see, and minds brave enough to ask who really laid Rome's first stones. Aboriginal Australian elder reciting songlines, describing ancient coastlines from 10,000 years ago when seas were lower. Native American storyteller sharing flood legends, aligning with Younger Dryas geological evidence. European folk keeper, preserving accurate information about ancient sites without written records. Oral traditions as living memory, surviving when civilizations fall. Knowledge passed generation to generation with remarkable accuracy. Truth dismissed as myth, actually being preserved memory. Hermetic scholars studying Egyptian knowledge predating pharaohs. Gnostic initiates receiving secret teachings from pre-Christian sources. Various mystical orders across history, claiming guardianship of ancient wisdom. Initiation chains stretching back into darkness, beyond recorded history. The question of whether some claims genuinely preserve pre-cataclysm knowledge fragments versus invention. Esoteric traditions as potential repositories of forgotten truth. Medieval stonemason guild ceremony, with elaborate rituals protecting geometric and engineering knowledge, treated as sacred mysteries. Gothic cathedral rising in 12th century, with sophisticated engineering appearing from nowhere. Master teaching apprentice in chain, going back to time immemorial, inscribed in ancient script. The sudden explosion of architectural knowledge, suggesting remembered or rediscovered methods. Guild knowledge potentially descending from ancient builders through centuries of craftsmen. Genetic and linguistic map of Europe, showing pre-Indo-European population, traces in modern bloodlines. Isolated regions with stronger ancient genetic markers. Basque language standing alone, unrelated to Indo-European family. Evidence of pre-Indo-European linguistic survival. Modern Europeans, as potential descendants of mysterious builders, with bloodlines mixed and genetic memory of unacknowledged ancestors, the builders' DNA persisting in living people. Modern persons standing in medieval cathedral, touching precisely placed stones, suggesting inherited knowledge, listening to folk songs about giants who built old walls, then looking at their own reflection, wondering if ancient builders' blood flows in their veins. Distant ancestor, visible as ghost on Rome's hills. Before Rome existed, setting first massive stones. Personal connection to lost civilization. The profound implication that builders dissolved into later populations, fragmenting knowledge but not disappearing entirely. Echoes of the builders persisting across time in stone monuments, secret traditions, craft knowledge, genes and languages of modern people. Fragments remaining in unexpected places waiting to be recognized. Folk wisdom dismissed by history, revealing connections. Conventional thinking overlooks the past not dead, but sleeping in living memory. The builders gone, as distinct civilization, but not entirely lost. Their legacy surviving in descendants who no longer remember building. Truth encoded in what we've been taught to ignore. Split timeline comparison showing conventional narrative on one side. Neat 5,000-year progression from hunter-gatherers to agriculture to cities, marked along ascending line labeled primitive. 2. Advanced versus revised timeline on other side, showing 13,000 plus year span with advanced pre-Younger Dryas civilization, catastrophic collapse, dark age, then recovery, the comfortable lie versus uncomfortable truth, textbook certainty crumbling before evidence, implications measured in millennia, not centuries, advanced civilization before 12,800 years ago, working stone with precision and encoding astronomical knowledge into monuments, then Younger Dryas catastrophe, striking with climate chaos and extraterrestrial impacts, coastal cities drowning as seas rise, survivors scattering and regressing to subsistence, dark age, stretching for millennia, the cycle of achievement and loss, humanity clawing back toward complexity after forgetting nearly everything ancestors knew. Sumer and Egypt circa 3000 BCE, not inventing civilization but recovering it. Scattered survivors finally relearning enough to build cities again. Fragments of pre-cataclysm knowledge being rediscovered and reclaimed. The moment labeled beginning of civilization, in textbooks actually being humanity's recovery, not first achievement. Inheritors mistaken for inventors. The reframing of history's supposed dawn as actually its renaissance. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, with massive carved pillars arranged in precise circles dated to 9600 BCE. Hunter-gatherers, supposedly primitive, yet demonstrating organizational capacity and artistic sophistication that shouldn't exist. Conventional archaeology, treating it as anomaly, versus revised understanding, showing it as post-cataclysm recovery. Remnant built by survivors, retaining fragments of older knowledge. The outlier that makes perfect sense when timeline shifts. Sequence of historical paradigm shifts Earth's age from 6,000 years to billions. Fixed continents giving way to plate tectonics, geocentrism collapsing to heliocentrism, evolution, overcoming resistance to become accepted, each showing initial institutional resistance, then eventual acceptance. The pattern suggesting recognition of cyclical ancient civilization will be next paradigm shift. Evidence eventually winning over inertia, the inevitable progression of scientific truth. Future generation, looking back, amazed at our belief that civilization began only 5,000 years ago. Evidence of far older achievements, literally beneath our feet, waiting to be seen. Rome's foundations and worldwide megalithic sites, glowing as obvious proof we refuse to acknowledge. Textbooks being rewritten. The perspective of posterity, viewing our blindness with the same disbelief we have for those who believed Earth was center of universe. Truth that was always there, waiting for eyes, willing to see. Contrast between comforting narrative of linear progress, showing humanity ascending from primitive to advanced along upward arrow, labeled ignorance to enlightenment, versus cyclical reality, showing civilizations rising and falling repeatedly in endless wheel. The comfortable lie of perpetual advancement versus uncomfortable truth of recurring pattern. Progress not as line, but as cycle. Modern civilization at peak, falsely believing itself immune to fall that claimed all predecessors. Historical examples of knowledge lost. Roman concrete formula forgotten for 1,000 years, shown as crumbling structures. Bronze Age writing systems vanishing completely, leaving illiterate survivors. Medieval Europeans having to rediscover mathematics from Arabic preservation of Greek learning. The pattern of advanced civilizations losing capabilities and having to relearn. Proof that progress reverses, that knowledge vanishes, that we've fallen before and risen again through painful recovery. Modern civilization's fragility visualized through interconnected vulnerable systems, electrical grid, shown as delicate web, communication satellites, and server farms as breakable nodes, global supply chains as fragile threads where one disruption cascades worldwide, removing electricity for 6 months, showing advanced nations unable to feed populations or preserve knowledge within 1 generation, losing capabilities considered permanent, breathtaking vulnerability hidden beneath technological confidence, the hubris of believing we're different from civilizations that fell before, sequence showing each civilization believing itself eternal, Romans proclaiming eternal empire before ruins, medieval Christians declaring divine permanence before transformation, modern technological society claiming permanent security, each at moment of peak confidence before fall, the same delusion repeated across millennia. Recognition of cyclical patterns should humble us, but each age forgets. Achievements impressive, but not unprecedented, and certainly not permanent without active preservation effort. Hope and resilience, showing humans achieving advanced civilization, falling to catastrophe, then rebuilding and rising again to even greater heights. The cycle demonstrating both fragility and strength, possibility of breaking pattern through preparation, knowledge preserved in multiple formats and locations, robust infrastructure, less dependent on fragile systems, learning from past to prepare for catastrophes, currently dismissed as impossible because forgotten, the cycle as teacher, not just threat. Rome's ruins at night, with figure standing among fallen columns and broken stones, feeling weight of impermanence, empires rising and falling, knowledge gained and lost, nothing human lasting forever unchanged. The question, not whether our civilization will fall, but whether we'll preserve knowledge for whoever comes after, learning from those who came before, whose names are forgotten, but whose stones remain, the eternal lesson of transience carved into ancient foundations, humility demanded by history's endless cycle, modern ground-penetrating radar and seismic imaging equipment, surveying beneath Rome, transparent visualization, showing hidden chambers and foundation structures revealed without disturbing surface stones, technology capable of mapping secrets that conventional excavation would take decades to reach. The tools existing today to answer millennia-old questions, contrast between capability and willingness, machinery ready but bureaucracy blocking, only thing preventing discovery being honest examination of findings. Institutional archaeologists and independent researchers working together, excavating deep foundation layers previously detected but left untouched, comprehensive surveying with results being made publicly available instead of filed in restricted archives, analysis beginning with evidence rather than predetermined conclusions, multidisciplinary team including archaeology, geology, engineering, materials, science examining structures with fresh, unprejudiced eyes, collaborative honest investigation versus protective gatekeeping, scholar at desk, surrounded by archaeological reports, honestly marking sections unknown and uncertain, instead of filling gaps with assumptions presented as fact. Rome's megalithic foundations, labeled as genuine mystery, rather than dismissed with inadequate explanations. Embrace of uncertainty versus false certainty. Paradigm-challenging evidence, sparking excitement for deeper investigation instead of reflexive dismissal. Institutional resistance crumbling before commitment to follow evidence into uncomfortable territory. Curious individuals at archaeological sites, asking critical questions tour guides cannot answer. People supporting alternative research and pressuring institutions for transparency. Visiting monuments with skeptical eyes, staying curious about all narratives, mainstream and alternative alike. Public involvement in pursuit of truth, citizens demanding honest investigation. Grassroots pressure for archaeological transparency. Contribution beyond academia through critical engagement and informed questioning. Ancient builders' foundations, still bearing weight beneath Rome after millennia. Their enormous effort to create enduring works honored by modern investigators. Genuinely trying to understand, rather than lazily assuming textbook answers. Stones that don't care about academic careers or institutional paradigms. Waiting patiently for honest examination. What we owe to builders who succeeded in creating permanence, respect through investigation, not comfortable assumptions. Fork in the path showing 2 futures. One where current generation courageously excavates detected chambers and follows evidence to truth, uncovering Rome's actual origins. Other path showing mysteries left unsolved for descendants, while we cling to comfortable narratives, protecting us from unsettling truths. the choice between brave, honest investigation and cowardly, comfortable ignorance, the question of whether we'll be generation that finally seeks truth or continues protecting lies. Crossroads moment in humanity's understanding of its own past. Journey map showing path from simple question on quiet Roman night through millennia of mystery across continents, layers of discovery peeling back from Roman surface through Etruscan knowledge, to Pelasgian Cyclopean walls, to pre-Ice Age civilization. The investigation visualized as descending spiral into depths of time that textbooks claim should be empty, each layer revealing more questions than answers, the simple question becoming profound mystery spanning 13,000 years. Balanced scales with confident knowledge on one side, genuine anomalies, megalithic techniques absent from Roman manuals, pre-Roman sophistication, gaps deserving investigation, and uncertainty on other side, exact identity of builders, indigenous or migrant origins, full extent of civilization, cause of disappearance, the honest acknowledgement of what we know versus what remains unknown, uncertainty as strength, not weakness, questions deserving serious investigation, not dismissive explanations. Rome's ancient stones, patient and silent, beneath modern streets, waiting through centuries for brave investigators to bring secrets to light. The foundations holding mysteries outlasting empire and republic, and tourism, tools and evidence already present in our generation. The question of whether we'll be ones to dig deep and look honestly or leave discovery for descendants who'll wonder why we didn't investigate. Stones indifferent to theories and narratives simply existing and waiting for truth. The eternal patience of stone versus human reluctance to face unsettling discoveries. Epistemological visualization, showing narratives hardening from fluid inquiry into rigid, accepted fact. Mainstream history textbooks, claiming certainty about Rome's origins, while cracks appear in foundations, revealing they're fundamentally wrong. Skepticism toward authority as essential tool, consensus presented as infallibility crumbling. Understanding Rome's true age, changing not just history books but how we see ourselves and our civilization and our future. The question of how we know what we claim to know made visible. Western civilizations claimed linear descent from Greece and Rome through Christianity, visualized as golden thread, legitimizing imperialism and colonialism and cultural superiority, then the thread fragmenting and complicating as Rome revealed to have inherited from earlier peoples, achievements originating elsewhere or in deeper time, no culture able to claim primacy, mythologized ancestry dissolving, honest, complex understanding, fostering humility and interconnectedness, replacing division, geopolitical power structures built on false narrative crumbling, archaeological preservation scene, showing workers renovating foundation labeled Roman 2,000 years old, with modern techniques, but transparent overlay revealing structure, actually 10,000 years old, requiring completely different preservation approach, evidence being inadvertently destroyed through inappropriate restoration, irreplaceable ancient truth erased by misunderstanding, every renovation potentially destroying something far more ancient than assumed, practical stakes of correct historical understanding, ancient people possessing intelligence equal to modern humans, achieving things we struggle to replicate, a contrast between dismissive, primitive label and actual sophisticated capability, human potential demonstrated across multiple prehistoric advanced civilizations, innovation we claim as original, revealed as rediscovery, progress we celebrate shown as recovery from previous heights, recognition that we're not as special as we think while ancestors were more impressive than we've acknowledged, humility demanded by honest assessment, Rome's ruins as warning and inspiration, showing both what humans can achieve and how completely achievements can vanish. Sophisticated civilizations, rising and falling, leaving only scattered monuments. Our civilization potentially following same pattern, the fragility visualized through crumbling structures, knowledge being preserved in multiple formats, and locations resistant to catastrophe. Robust infrastructure replacing fragile systems, preparation for disasters currently dismissed as impossible, humility about our place as one iteration among potentially many in deep time. Profound question: who built Rome's foundations? Expanding into larger questions: who are we? Where did we come from? Will we repeat mistakes that turned previous civilizations into forgotten mysteries? The investigation of ancient stones leading to self-examination, custodians of knowledge that took millennia to accumulate but could vanish in decades. The ultimate significance being not just historical but existential, understanding our origins to avoid our potential end, Rome's mystery as mirror, reflecting humanity's cyclical nature and uncertain future. Detected chambers beneath Rome waiting in darkness under Palatine Hill and Forum. Cross-section showing layers, Roman construction, pre-Roman settlement, then deepest megalithic foundations at bottom, shrouded in mystery. What waits to be discovered, glowing faintly in the depths. Structures we see every day, concealing foundations whose origins remain unknown. The question of what we would find if we could dig to the very beginning. Darkness holding secrets. Authorities refuse to excavate. The Pelasgians as fading ghostly figures building oldest Mediterranean structures, their name disappearing into obscurity, despite ancient texts crediting them with Cyclopean walls. Etruscan records, fragmentary and conveniently incomplete, suggesting deliberate erasure. Sophisticated knowledge of engineering and astronomy appearing without gradual development. The questions of who they were and why history allowed them to fade. Mystery of origins that should be known but have been forgotten or hidden. Imagined pre-Ice Age civilization, showing advanced society with lost technologies, their beliefs and social organization. The moment of their fall through natural catastrophe or war or pandemic or unknown cause. Survivors attempting to preserve knowledge for future generations through various methods. Question of whether modern esoteric traditions genuinely maintain ancient wisdom or are later inventions. The uncertainty about what they were like and what happened to them. Speculation filling gaps where evidence is absent. Underwater ruins on continental shelves where cities stood before seas rose. Unexplored regions hiding buried evidence. Truth destroyed by time, and rising oceans and conquering cultures, erasing threatening knowledge. The question of how much has been lost versus how much might still exist waiting to be found. Continental shelf edges showing submerged structures. Inaccessible regions marked with question marks, the evidence that could change everything if we could reach it. Personal reflection scene showing person at museum or ruins. Questioning plaques and accepted explanations. Imagining future survivors rebuilding after our civilization's collapse and misunderstanding us. The responsibility to preserve knowledge for potential future catastrophes. Comparing what we learned in school as certainty versus what is actually educated guessing. Forming own judgments by looking with own eyes. The personal stakes of historical truth and our duty to future generations. Intimate nighttime scene with hand touching ancient stone with new respect and reverence. Rome's monuments standing for 10 millennia, watching empires rise and fall. Unknown builder, shown as translucent figure, who thought and felt and hoped, whose name is lost but legacy remains. The weight of time and presence of all who came before. Countless lives and achievements leaving only stones. The eternal question of what truth lies buried. Invitation to sleep well and dream of ancient builders and wonder. Peaceful contemplative atmosphere for drifting into sleep with mysteries.